There are cars that win races, and then there are cars that write history, cars that define what a brand means. For Aston Martin, that car is the DBR1, a machine so elegant, so successful, and so steeped in legend that it not only conquered Le Mans in 1959, but went on to become the most expensive British car ever sold. A piece of rolling art that fetched $22.5 million at RM Sotheby's Monterey auction in 2017. This is the story of that car, how it was born, raced, triumphed, and ascended into immortality. Genesis of a legend. The year was 1956. The world of endurance racing was changing fast after the tragic events of the 1955 Le Mans disaster. New regulations meant Aston Martin, under the leadership of David Brown, could finally build cars exclusively for racing, rather than merely road-legal grand tourers. Enter Ted Cutting, Aston Martin's brilliant racing design chief. His assignment was clear: create a purpose-built sports prototype capable of endurance, speed, and elegance. A car that could win Le Mans outright. What emerged from his drawing board was the Aston Martin DBR1. Constructed on a multi-tubular space-frame chassis and cloaked in a body of hand-formed aluminum alloy, the DBR1 was not just another racer. It was a sculpture built for speed. Beneath its long, tapering bonnet sat a 2.5-liter straight-six engine, soon enlarged to 3.0 liters for more power and torque. Its low-slung stance, sculpted fenders, and the distinctive side vent gave it a grace that few race cars had ever achieved. At a glance, it looked delicate, but on the track, it was a weapon. Early struggles and relentless refinement. Aston Martin's first outings with the DBR1 in 1956 were far from glorious. The debut at the 24 Hours of Le Mans ended in heartbreak when a gearbox failure cut short what had seemed a promising run after 246 laps. Yet, beneath the frustration, there was revelation. The car's balance, responsiveness, and sheer potential were undeniable. Over the next 3 years, the engineers at Feltham refined the DBR1 relentlessly. The chassis was lightened, aerodynamics tweaked, and the engine massaged for both endurance and outright pace. With each iteration, the car grew sharper, faster, and more reliable. The result was a team of 5 chassis, each hand-built and tuned individually. Among them, chassis number DBR1/1 would become the crown jewel, the car that carried Aston Martin to its greatest moment. Triumph at Le Mans, 1959. The DBR1 was ready to face its destiny. Lined up against the might of Ferrari and Porsche at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, Aston Martin entered 2 factory cars, DBR1/2, driven by Carroll Shelby and Roy Salvadori, and DBR1/4, piloted by Maurice Trintignant and Paul Frere. What followed became one of the most celebrated victories in British motorsport history. Shelby and Salvadori, trading stints through exhaustion and blistering heat, guided the DBR1 through the night. With the Ferrari 250 Testarossas faltering and the Porsches unable to match its pace, the green Aston surged into the lead. After 24 hours of relentless racing, they crossed the finish line first, securing Aston Martin's only overall win at Le Mans, and sealing the World Sports Car Championship in the same year. In that moment, the DBR1 didn't just win a race. It cemented Aston Martin's place among legends. A driver's masterpiece. The DBR1 was a car for true racers, and it attracted the best. Behind its wooden-rimmed steering wheel sat names that defined an era. Sterling Moss, Tony Brooks, Reg Parnell, Les Leston, and of course, Carroll Shelby. On modern roads, it feels surprisingly light, only around 800 kilograms, and yet unshakably planted. From racetrack to auction block. Fast forward nearly 6 decades to Monterey 2017. One of the 5 DBR1s ever built, chassis DBR1/1, the very car that had been driven by Moss and had led the charge for Aston Martin's championship glory, rolled onto the auction stage at RM Sotheby's. When the hammer finally fell at $22.5 million, the crowd erupted. The DBR1 had become the most expensive British car ever sold, surpassing even Jaguar's storied D-Types. For collectors, this was more than a purchase. It was an acquisition of history itself. Inside, simplicity reigns. A bare aluminum dash, toggle switches, and that timeless wooden wheel. A minimalist environment that feels pure, purposeful, and human. No screens, no excess, just the essentials to connect man and machine. This purity would go on to inspire future Aston Martins, shaping the brand's DNA for decades. The spirit lives on. V12 Speedster DBR1. In 2021, Aston Martin paid homage to its racing masterpiece with the V12 Speedster DBR1, a limited-run roadster that channels the spirit of the 1956 icon. Painted in the same racing green with white Club Sport pinstripes and roundels, it's a visual love letter to history. Under its sculpted body lies a 5.2-liter twin-turbocharged V12, delivering 690 horsepower and 555 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox. It rockets from 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 3.5 seconds and tops out at 186 miles per hour. Only 88 examples were built, each costing around $1 million, a small fortune by modern standards, but still far from the $22.5 million commanded by its ancestor. So that's the full story of the 1956 Aston Martin DBR1, a classic race car that's not just beautiful, but also carries an incredible legacy on the track. If you love classic cars with real character like this one, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so we can dive into more legendary machines in the next video. Stay fast and stay curious.